Those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed.
Doesn't exist. Not a real verse in the Bible. You'll never find a verse in the Bible that says that if you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. If you curse Israel, you'll be cursed. This is typical dispensational rhetoric that is banking on the ignorance of the listener, not knowing what the Bible actually says.
It's hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese. You're not.
I don't know how deep you want to go, but you have the King David Hotel.
That way he can stay in office forever and ever. He's been there most of the last 20 years.
Assalamu alaikum, greetings of peace. Millions have tuned in to watch the recent interview Tucker Carlson conducted with a U.S. Senator. An interview that is raising eyebrows and stirring major conversations across the country. We're going to get into key segments of that interview Tucker Carlson had. Then I'll be joined by someone with deep insight into the issues it touches upon and who isn't afraid to break it down honestly. Let's get into the video, and then I'll bring out my next guest.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my. You pull out the phone and use the Google.
It's in Genesis. But so you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it. And you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology. I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker,
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two,
hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But what, hold on.
This is my next guest, Allison Weir, an American peace activist, journalist, writer, and widely regarded as a Middle East expert. She's also the founder of the highly informative and influential website, If Americans Only Knew. Allison, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm glad to be on your show. Thank you.
Thank you for having. Thank you for being back with us. Are you familiar with this verse in Genesis in the Bible that Senator brought up? And is there a consensus among religious scholars, Christian scholars, academics, that this refers to the modern state of Israel?
Doesn't exist. Not a real verse in the Bible. You'll never find a verse in the Bible that says that if you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. If you curse Israel, you'll be cursed. This is typical dispensational rhetoric that is banking on the ignorance of the listener, not knowing what the Bible actually says. Now, what he's referencing is Genesis chapter 12, where God is addressing Abraham, not Israel, and telling him that those who bless him will be blessed, those who curse him will be cursed, and in these shall all families of the earth be blessed. Of course, referring to the fact that Jesus Christ would come from Abraham, Jesus Christ being the person in whom all families of the earth have been blessed. No mention of Israel whatsoever. And in fact, Israel didn't even exist until long after Abraham bore Isaac. Isaac bore Jacob. Jacob became Israel. Israel had 12 sons. Those 12 sons became 12 tribes. Those 12 tribes became known as the nation of Israel. Not the modern state of Israel that was created in 19...
I'm familiar with it now, but growing up as a Christian, as a Protestant Christian, I actually had never heard it. It was never taught in any of the churches I went to. I grew up in a military family, so my family moved around quite a bit. Sometimes I attended services on military bases in chapels that were non-denominational. And yet I never heard that verse referred to. So it's very interesting that it's become so significant to a number of people. But no, there's actually very little consensus on it. I would suspect that the majority of Christian Americans and Christians in general don't believe that that refers to the modern state of Israel. This is from Genesis, a very long time ago. It doesn't actually say bless Israel even in the Bible. It just says bless you, and it means the progeny of Abraham, who are both Jews and Palestinian Arabs, etc. So it's not a consensus at all. It was promoted really surprisingly, I've looked into this a bit and found that this whole so-called Christian Zionism has been promoted since the early 1900s on behalf of Israel. I can go into that at some point if you'd like me to.
Yes, this is I think, very important because we want to get to the root of the matter, and it seems like this is, if you agree, this would be the root of it. And more importantly, isn't it deeply concerning that a U.S. senator appears to be who's making and responsible for making foreign policy decisions, is based on this, which all started, is it correct, by someone who was a con man, if you want to be straightforward about it, Cyrus Scofield. This was funded by the earliest Zionist movement. So yeah, if you can get into the history of the Scofield Bible and why knowing about this is so important. And I wonder if this senator knows about what you're going to talk about. And Tucker actually knows about this, and he's spoken about this before with his guests.
That's right. Tucker has gotten into this a little bit with the previous interview with I think his name was John Rich, an American evangelical who has talked about the false teachings that occur around Israel. Yes, this was largely promoted by a man named Cyrus Scofield. He had been a pastor in a Texas church and ended up being a member of the Lotus Club in Manhattan. This is not the usual place for a Texas preacher to be a member. While he was a member there was also a member named Samuel Untermeyer, who was a Jewish hardcore Zionist, promoting Zionists already in the early 1900s in the United States. And I've written about that fact quite a bit in my book. So he was there, and as the biographer of Cyrus Scofield writes, and the biographer is a Christian who had been evangelical and then looked into this further and was changed his mind on that topic. He writes that it's quite clear that somebody was guiding and funding Cyrus Scofield in what he did. Cyrus Scofield ended up writing an annotated version of the Bible. This is largely the first annotated version of the Bible, certainly in modern times. And his annotations make it seem that the Bible is referring to the modern state of Israel, that anybody speaking against the modern state of Israel is supposedly anti-Semitic, which is not in the Bible. This is just added by Cyrus Scofield, who has no degree in any of this and who had a background as a con man. He had left his wife and children. He certainly, no one would view him as a highly moral person or knowledgeable about Christian theology. But he was able to write these notes in what's now called the Scofield Reference Bible. Through the years, the notes that have been added, even after Scofield died, have become more Zionist. It's very interesting that that's going on. So that Bible was published by I think it was the Cambridge publishing house in England, and it was distributed. There was money to distribute that Bible all around the United States, especially in the Bible Belt. It was promoted in Bible colleges so that people that were learning to become pastors would read that really false portrayal of the Bible, and many of them would then teach it, not knowing the real facts on it. So that Bible has had a great deal of influence, but many people, actually right from the beginning, I read about this a number of years ago when I first learned about this, a number of American theologians, evangelical theologians, early on were writing that this was a false teaching, that this was not correct, that what it talks about partly is dispensationalism, a sort of unusual kind of theology that really is not mentioned very much anymore. But basically what's been driving Americans, I think American evangelicals, are two things. They're led to believe that Jews are God's chosen people, whereas most people feel that all people are God's chosen people. That's what Jesus Christ was talking about. And they believe what Senator Cruz said was that he who blesses Israel is blessed, etc. But that's unclear. That's quite clearly not talking about the modern state of Israel. It's not talking about Netanyahu. It's not talking about a country that is killing children and starving children in large numbers. The real reason, I think, even more than the Scofield Bible, that many evangelicals support Israel is because they don't know what Israel's doing. There was an excellent documentary by a man named Porter Speakman in 2010, who had himself been raised as an evangelical and went to Palestine. And many religious Christians have gone there and have actually seen what Israel's doing and have spoken against it. So he made a documentary showing how when evangelicals go to Palestine, the West Bank and Gaza, and Israel itself, and have seen the treatment of Palestinians, they realize that this is in violation of most teachings in the New Testament, that this is a violation of Christian doctrine, of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you, many teachings by Jesus. So I think that even though the Scofield Bible is very significant, what's even more significant is that the media so rarely show Americans, especially conservative Americans, who watch Fox News, for example, and may listen to talk radio. Many of them are being deeply misinformed about actually what's going on. And I think that that's been a major role in the so-called Christian Zionist views about Israel and Palestine and Gaza and Iran.
So could we say that this senator, he's been duped? I mean, this is a con man, and this is a con job. And this is, it's really sad to see people who are supposed to be policymakers, intellectuals, who are running America, but they don't have this basic knowledge that you have, and it's getting out there now. Now it was a lie that was promoted, like you were saying. It was put out into the universities, college. I heard that Oxford Press put out 1 million copies and more free. They were just giving this out there to push this false narrative and this propaganda. It's very sad to see senators, congressmen, people like this who don't know this basic information.
That's right. And getting back to Senator Cruz, I actually don't think he's duped.
No?
He's not a stupid man.
No,
he did go to Harvard. And but he also knows that if you speak out against Israel, then you will have the Israel lobby in this country, extremely powerful and well-funded, will come after you. And they will either donate to you, in which case you'll get huge amounts of money for your next campaign, because every senator and congressman is concerned about being reelected. So you will either get lots of money for your campaign, or your opponent will get lots of money for their campaign. I think that's actually what's going on. It's interesting, as many people notice, Senator Cruz didn't even know where in the Bible it supposedly said that.
Mm-hmm.
He knew very little about the Bible. I think that he does know a great deal about the mechanics of getting elected, the importance, the necessity of campaign donations, and that campaign donations regarding Israel-Palestine are dominated clearly by pro-Israel billionaires and pro-Israel millionaires and others. And that's what I think was in his mind, and is in his mind and the mind of many of our Congress people from both sides of the aisle.
Let's get into some more clips here. My opinion is that these are fake Christians. People like, this is just my opinion from my analyzing, and they use Christianity for their own agenda, and they're fake. I don't know if you'd agree, but that's just my opinion, my analysis. Let's get into some more clips from this interview.
on foreign countries and the threat we supposedly face, a lot of which is fake, obviously, over the kind of slowly unfolding tragedy of what's happening to our country. The dollars spent, the aid packages to Ukraine to pay the retirement of civil servants in a country that we have nothing to do with, the endless support for Israel, very expensive, when people are literally buying groceries on credit in the United States. Can you feel like it's nothing against Ukraine or Israel or any other country?
All right, let's stop. You said the support for Israel, very expensive. How much support do we give to Israel?
Well, you tell me, you vote for it.
Yeah, it's about $3 billion a year is the military assistance.
Is that the only assistance?
Yeah, we just have military assistance. Israel does not have additional assistance. There's an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, and it's $3 billion a year.
So what is it costing to support the bombing campaign to protect Israel right now from Iran?
So I don't know right now, but I'll tell you this. Let's go back to the touchstone on foreign policy. American interest.
Now, this is, for those that don't know, this is your area of expertise, because if Americans only knew, that is, you're the originator of this website, and you actually discuss these things. Can you help shed some light now on, and what's your reaction to this?
Well, he's minimizing how much money we give to Israel, first of all.
He's minimizing.
Yes, the amount of money we give to Israel in 2024 was $63 million per day. $63 million per day of our tax money went to Israel in 2024. This is fully documented. He also minimizes the fact that we give a great deal of money to Jordan and to Egypt, much less than we give to Israel, but still many millions of dollars. And that's because they were bought off by American tax money on behalf of Israel to get them to stop supporting Palestinian human rights. The amount of Israel is costing Americans massive amounts of money. On top of that is the debacle of the Iraq War, which was because of Israel. We fought in the Iraq War. This is well documented, again, on behalf of Israel. That has cost our country at least $3 trillion. It's probably now closer to $5 trillion. Israel partisans are trying to get us to fight another Middle East war on behalf of Israel against Iran, which would, be another disaster. So that part is he's left out that part. Mm-hmm. I think in terms of whether someone's a fake Christian or not, that's not probably for me to say, but certainly his statements and his actions suggests that he ignores most of the teachings of Jesus Christ. And I think that he's doing that because he wants to get elected. Mm-hmm. And that's what it seems to require. Now, what's interesting is that many other conservatives who are, expect many of them, Marjorie Taylor Greene was quite likely, I would think, would be from a fundamentalist evangelical type of background. She has been speaking out vociferously against a war on Iran. There have been a number of Christians that are now speaking out. Tucker Carlson is clearly a devout Christian. He speaks out against it. Some of the others Matt Gaetz speaks out against it, against a war on Iran. Thomas Massey, he's a good example. Now, Thomas Massey is an American congressman from West Virginia. That's the Bible Belt. He has spoken out. He has voted against money to Israel. He has divulged the fact, as he put it in a long interview. He said, everybody in Congress has an AIPAC guy. Everybody has an AIPAC guy. AIPAC is one of the many, many lobbying organizations on behalf of Israel, but it's probably the most famous, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. This is a lobby on behalf of a foreign country, and yet they have somebody that's telling everybody in Congress how they should vote, what they should say, they should vote for, and what they should vote against. And here's Thomas Massey, a devout Christian from the Bible Belt, speaking out against that, exposing that, and speaking out against it.
I'm going to go to another clip in the interview.
The obsession with Israel. When we're talking about foreign countries,
hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese. You're not talking about Japanese. You're not talking about the Brits. You're not talking about the French. The question, what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, I'm an anti-Semite now.
Senator, you're asking the questions, Tucker. You're asking, why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you just asked.
Hardly saying that, and I have.
That is exactly what you just said.
Well, actually, I can speak for myself and tell you what I am saying.
Good.
On behalf not simply of myself, but of my many Jewish friends who would have the same questions, which is to what extent, and it's interesting you're trying to derail my questions by calling me an anti-Semite, which you are.
I did not.
Of course you are. And rather than be honorable enough to say it right to my face, you are in a sleazy feline way implying it, or just asking questions about the Jews. I'm not asking questions about the Jews. There's nothing to do with Jews or Judaism. It has to do with the foreign government.
Isn't Israel controlling our foreign policy? That's not about the Jews.
You said, I'm asking you.
And by the way, you're the one that just called me, I think, a sleazy feline. So
Your thoughts?
Well, of course, the first thing when anybody talks about Palestine or Palestinians or human rights for Palestinians or mentions that there are Palestinian Christians and have, always been there as a significant portion in the past of the community. Anybody, Jewish or not Jewish, who speaks out on that is called anti-Semitic. There are many Jewish Americans who speak out about it. There are a number of Jewish Israelis who speak out about it. I happen to be a Christian American who speaks about it. All of us are called anti-Semitic. This has gone on, for ages and ages. It's increased in recent years because Israel has even managed to embed a new definition of anti-Semitism in the U.S. government, in governments around the world, on campuses around the United States. I've written about this in great detail because it's very damaging and manipulative. It's called the Holocaust Remembrance definition of anti-Semitism. It largely revolves around statements about Israel. Anti-Semitism is bigotry or dislike of Jews. It's wrong, as all bigotry is wrong. It has nothing to do with statements about a foreign country, especially factual statements about a foreign country. And yet that's the new definition that's being promoted and has been promoted step by step by step. If people go to our website, If Americans Knew, you can find my long article about the weaponization of anti-Semitism and the fabrication of a new definition of it. So, of course, Cruz, ended up suggesting very strongly that Tucker Carlson is anti-Semitic, and that's what he would have done against anybody. Norman Finkelstein, who's Jewish, you probably call him anti-Semitic. It's just the tactic that's always used, and sadly, it often works. Often people then believe, oh, Alison Weir is an anti-Semite, or Tucker Carlson is an anti-Semite, or Norman Finkelstein is an anti-Semite, something ridiculous, like those things. So because of that, it silences, the most troubling part of it to me is it silences many people who know better and who are maybe horrified at what's going on in Gaza and has gone on in Gaza long before the last 2 years and in the West Bank and elsewhere, because they don't want to be called anti-Semitic. And so many people don't speak out because of that. They don't want to be called that name. They don't want their reputation to be damaged. They don't want their livelihood potentially be damaged by speaking out about this issue.
Listen, I came into Congress 13 years ago with the stated intention of being the leading defender of Israel in the United States Senate.
Right.
And I've worked every day to do that. AIPAC, a lot of...
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, he tells you his intention right off the bat, why he came in. That was kind of ironic. What are your thoughts when you hear that?
Well, that's unusually honest, that someone would come into office in the U.S. government to advocate on a foreign country. But that's, he's actually boasting of something that he doesn't even deserve the award for. Because Chuck Schumer, who was the past majority leader, Senator Chuck Schumer from New York. Chuck Schumer has been boasting that he is the guardian of Israel, that Schumer means guardian, that he is the guardian of Israel. In the U.S. Senate, we have a very powerful senator saying that he is the guardian of Israel, even before Ted Cruz said that. So many people, sadly, because they want I think Schumer actually is ideologically pro-Israel from his earliest days, I suspect. Ted Cruz probably, when he became an ambitious politician, then he became a strong supporter of Israel. It's interesting that some people that this is often portrayed as being motivated by religion, but look at somebody like Jesse Helms, who was from, I believe, from one of the Carolinas, maybe North Carolina or South Carolina, was a senator in Congress for many years, very, very, very conservative, from the Bible Belt, from deep in the Bible Belt. He used to vote, he originally voted against money for Israel because, like most conservatives at that time, they were America first and very conservative financially and didn't believe in sending lots of money abroad when there was need in the United States. So he voted against it, even despite his religious views, whatever they were, whatever they likely were. But when he realized that he got very, very bad media coverage by what are pro-Israel media, he changed his tune and he changed his voting pattern. So it has much more to do with elections and with domestic politics, as people often call it, than over religious beliefs.
So we started off talking about the Christian Zionism, some history there, why this is important to know. And now we're seeing in the interview, let's go to one more clip here, because it goes into my next question.
Iran's nuclear capacity. And the reason I view Iran differently, we talked before about Iraq. I opposed the Iraq war. We talked about Syria. I opposed military intervention in Syria. The reason for that is those did not pose a threat to the United States. I think Iran is markedly different. Number one, the Ayatollah is a religious zealot. He is a lunatic, but a particularly dangerous kind of lunatic because he's driven by religious fervor. When he says death to America and death to Israel.
Now, look, I'm not a fan of Iran. I'm not advocating for Iran. I'm not a spokesman for them or anything, but just this hypocrisy that when you see, he's talking about religious zealotry. But we started off, he's here talking about why he's doing things, his intention, talking about the Bible driving him. And then, the people he's supporting, how much you probably know, maybe you can talk about it. The people he's supporting are also religious zealots who are waging a modern day, I don't know if you know this term, hedom. This is, because if you use Holocaust, I mean, this will be equivalent to it also against innocent human beings, women and children in Gaza. What's happening right there? They're trying to engineer prophecies. You probably know about the red heifers, the plan to try to take over the Masjid Aqsa. So do we see the same pattern now, repeating itself, where you have, I don't know if you've also seen this, the Bibi files. He keeps trying to get the U.S. into these wars, and then we see history in the past. You've seen these same people, these zealots. He's talking about zealots, but we have a history of people that he's supporting and who are part of this, who were at one time, responsible for, I don't know how deep you want to go, but you have the King David Hotel. You know about this? This was a false flag, wasn't it? I mean, I'll mention a lot of things. We can come back to it. The USS Liberty.
USS Liberty, a famous false flag. You want to get us in the war against Egypt? Well, then Israel and the CIA collaborate and bomb and kill American sailors on the USS Liberty. Too bad you didn't kill all of them, because a lot of them lived, and they told the world what the hell happened when they tried to use American sailors as a false flag to get us into a war against Egypt. Didn't work.
These are the same people who went and tried to blame Muslims and who tried to go ahead and do these attacks. And now it's uncovered that these were false flags. The Levant affair and Iraq, all of this, our bestie gave us this information. Then Colin Powell gets out there and all of this gets turned out to be a lie. There were no weapons of mass destruction, but 1 million people's lives were taken because of this. So that's what I mean by the pattern. It keeps repeating itself. What are your thoughts?
You're right. I mean, all of those are significant factors that have largely hidden from the majority of Americans. More and more people are learning it.
Are you
Yeah,
familiar with all of these incidences that
all
I
of
had
those.
mentioned?
Yes, all of those
All of
I'm
them.
very familiar with, and
Am
I
I
think
am I accurate, or is there when I brought
you
these
are.
up?
If you know, people, I'm sure this will be on YouTube or somewhere, so people can pause it and look into, Google each one of your statements and look on our website, and we've had articles about them. We've talked about um, the Lavon affair, which was in the early 1950s when Israel was planting bombs and things in places where Americans congregated, with the idea that they would go off and people would be led to believe that this was by the Muslim Brotherhood when it was actually by Israel. This got exposed and was a scandal in Israel, so that it didn't succeed, but that was their attempt. The USS Liberty, when they attacked and tried to sink a U.S. Navy ship, killed 34 American servicemen, injured approximately at least 174 of them, have lied about it ever since. Many people suspect that that was a false flag incident meant to get the U.S. Their effort was to sink the ship with all men aboard. They even shot up life rafts. That's a war crime right there. If it had gone down, then quite likely the U.S. would have thought, oh, Israel's our ally, so of course it was done by Egypt, and we would have been brought into the war against Egypt. Because it didn't sink, and because the survivors and their families and the families of the 34 men who were killed have tried ever since to get the facts out on that one. In terms of religious zealotry, I would suggest that Israel really dwarfs other people in terms of the level of religious zealotry and the influence of those groups. They're not the majority of Israelis at all, but they often dominate Israeli policies. Certainly, currently in Netanyahu's policies, are dominated by these really cultish religious, Zionists. But that's not new. There's an excellent book that was written by an Israeli historian named Israel Shahak. He wrote 3 excellent books. I actually have read all 3 and recommend all 3. One of them is called Jewish Fundamentalism in Israel, where he exposes was being taught and is still being taught in Israel. It's quite astounding and disturbing to read about that. He also wrote one about Jewish fundamentalism in general, which is even stronger. And he wrote one called, I think it was Open Secrets, something like that, about Iran, about the effort beginning in 1991 to get the U.S. to attack Iran on behalf of Israel. So these are all very important aspects. I think what's also not known is that, for example, one of the influential groups that's often referred to, so-called religious groups that supports Israel is Christians United for Israel, CUFI. The sort of head of that is John Hagee, whose theology is very strange in many ways, including this way. But what people don't know is that the person who ran CUFI, Christians United for Israel, was run by David Bragg. David Bragg is a Jewish American attorney who was very close. He is very close to Israel. He got a lot of funding by the American billionaire Sheldon Adelson, a billionaire an American who has funded. He died, but now his wife Miriam, who is an Israeli citizen, continues to fund Donald Trump, for example, and the Republicans quite often. Getting back to CUFI, a lot of people don't know that, for example, I believe this is still the current co-executive director, is Sherry Dolinger. Sherry Dolinger is also Jewish, who is listed in the Israeli media, call her one of the 50 most influential Jews. This is the person running Christians United for Israel. There's a whole background to all of this that people really don't know. That's significant to understand. So we keep seeing this manipulation sometimes by Israeli American citizens, sometimes usually by groups working on behalf of Israel, are manipulating the American public and the U.S. government into taking policies that are extremely dangerous for the whole world, tragically damaging to the Middle East as people, not Israel hasn't only damaged and attacked Gaza and the West Bank. They've attacked Egypt, they've attacked Syria, they repeatedly attacked Lebanon, killing numerous people. But it's also extremely damaging to the United States. The fact that we are funding policies that are clearly grotesque, cruel war crimes, and the world knows that we're funding it, even though most Americans don't know that, causes hostility, understandable hostility to our country. So the Israel lobby is causing great damage in it. The other thing that's very bad about it that people often don't know is the Israel lobby portrays itself as representing all Jews. All Jewish Americans supposedly support these policies that AIPAC and the ADL and Jewish federations, Jewish community relations councils, etc., around the country support. They often say the Jewish community, suggesting that the Jews are running this. And that's not true. I have many Jewish friends who are, actively, publicly opposing these policies. I know Jewish Israelis who are publicly opposing these policies. But sadly, the Jewish establishment in the United States claims that all the Jewish establishment, sadly, is supporting and trying to enable what Israel is doing today. And then they try to claim that what they're doing represents all Jewish Americans, which it does not. So there's lots of dimensions to all of this. Again, on our website, we try to, I've been doing this for almost 25 years, belatedly in my life. I'm not young, so that's a big, that's after having been alive and active for many years. Only in fall of 2000 did I start to wake up to this issue. And in the 25 years since that time, I've studied it intensively. I've gone to the region a number of times. I've written a book about the history of the Israel lobby in the United States. And so I'm not speaking because of just recent anger or something. I'm speaking from 25 years of research in trying to find the actual facts and portray the situation as accurately and fairly and factually as I can. And for doing that, I'm constantly called anti-Semitic. Some people try to say I'm a communist, others try to say I'm a white supremacist. I'm none of those things. I feel an average American who wants justice, who believes in the tenets that many religions believe in terms of treating others with humanity and respect and morality. So that's who I am, and that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, well, this is a really good point, distinguishing between Zionism and you have many Jews who are speaking out against this. I've had rabbis on the program who also confirm any of the things that you're saying and are against this. And they see the havoc that it's causing in the world. And there's a really good documentary. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. It's called The BB Files. Have you seen that one?
I have not seen that one.
Have you heard of it? I think everybody should watch this because in that documentary, and I believe this is an Israeli documentary, and it has some subtitles, and it shows how this person who's now in charge of the state, Netanyahu, was actually about to go to jail for crimes he was doing. And you can see the elephant in the room. There's a former president. I'm going to play this and get your reaction. He kind of spills it why this person is doing what he's doing, because if he doesn't, then he's probably going to end up in jail. So let's have a look at this.
Mr. Netanyahu has long wanted to fight Iran because that way he can stay in office forever and ever. I mean, he's been there most of the last 20 years. But I think we should be trying to diffuse it. And I hope President Trump will do that. I hope anybody there will do that. We've got to stop. We got to convince our friends in the Middle East that we'll stand with them and try to protect them. But choosing undeclared wars in which the primary victims are civilians who are not politically involved one way or the other, just want to live decent lives, is not a very good solution. Do I think that we have to try to stop Iran from having a nuclear weapon? I do. I tried at that, and we had some success. But we don't have to have all this outright, constant killing of civilians who can't defend themselves, and they just want a chance to live.
So you have the BB files, you have the facts that this person was about to go to jail, and then everything kicks off, and now he's still taking us in a direction of chaos and World War III possibly. And now you have many who are seeing this. I wonder if Trump sees it, that and do you think many of Americans, politicians, are being played? I mean, the former president gets the elephant out of the room. He says he's just trying to stay in power. This is a great way to stay in power. What are your thoughts?
That's true. Yes, there's again, part of what I do, and I think I encourage people to do, is read the Israeli media, especially Haaretz is a daily newspaper, and it's, Netanyahu has clearly been accused with, looks like a great deal of evidence, that he's been corrupt. He's taken bribes of all sorts. His wife has taken bribes. All of this is well documented in Israel. The Israeli media, many people in the Israeli media and in Israel have suggested that Netanyahu is keeping these things going because when and if, well, someday the Gaza genocide will be over and some of this will stop. Then he'll be out of office because people were extremely angry at a lot of his policies. And when he's out of office, he will be prosecuted for a number of serious alleged crimes against him. That's widely known in Israel, and many people feel that is one of the reasons that he's keeping everything going and all of this violence going. I think that's entirely true. A lot of people don't know. Again, the media, U.S. media coverage of this is often so flawed. Even reports that seem good usually have sort of hidden Israeli spin in them. But, there's no evidence whatsoever that Iran has a nuclear weapons program. That has not been stated. The recent IEA, I always forget the initials, the recent Atomic Energy Agency that monitors nuclear weapons in the world issued a report. It did not say anywhere that Iran was developing nuclear weapons. That's been misreported over and over again. I just wrote an article about it. You can look at the report, you can scan it, look for, they did not say that Iran was developing nuclear weapons, that it was developing a nuclear bomb. In fact, the person who issued the report, Rafael Rossi, afterwards, in at least 2 interviews, these were broadcast on the U.S., I think on CNN, specifically said, we did not find evidence that Iran was developing a nuclear weapon. The supreme leader, who I think is an intelligent, I'm impressed at a number of the things I've seen that he has stated and said. He has issued a fatwa against developing a nuclear bomb. A fatwa is a religious edict saying that that is wrong and forbidden to have a nuclear weapon because it's such a dreadful weapon and causes such harm to people, to everyone. So there's even been a religious edict against developing a nuclear weapon in Iran. Now, after these recent attacks on Iran, people are saying that may change because the reason that countries often have a nuclear weapon is for deterrence. When you have a nuclear weapon, then you are not as likely to be attacked by Israel that has anywhere from 100 to 400 nuclear weapons and has the U.S. in their back pocket, we have hundreds and hundreds of nuclear weapons. So there's a real reason for a country that wants to remain safe from attack to have a deterrent, and that would be to develop a nuclear weapon. But so far, U.S. intelligence agencies, as was recently reported, time after time after time, year after year, report that there is no nuclear weapons development going on in Iran at all. And yet most Americans are being led to believe that there is, because of twisted US media coverage and because a lot of the, Jake Tapper is an Israel partisan. So if you go on CNN, you'll hear things from Jake Tapper that are sometimes just not true. And that's one of them.
Before we conclude, I remember I've quoted you from our last episode quite a few times. This is very important information, and that's why you're called If Americans Only Knew. And there is a campaign nowadays, and it's been happening for a long time. And the same people now that are responsible for many of these things we're talking about, they've also made this campaign now to cause division, to spread misinformation, and you listed the organizations. Can we touch upon that? To create this Islamophobia and how this is all connected. Do you remember that? We touched upon that in our last program.
That's right. Yes, there has been a very calculated campaign to cause Americans to fear and hate Muslims and to be misinformed about Islam. I remember interviewing a number of years ago, and we have this video on our website, a man named Ambassador Andrew Kilgore, very distinguished gentleman, originally from Alabama, who was in the Foreign Service for many years. He lived in a number of places in the Middle East and was eventually named an ambassador, a very, very patriotic American, very intelligent man. And one of the things that he said in our interview was that Americans are being led to believe, there's an effort to make Americans fear and hate Muslims and to make Muslims fear and hate Americans. This is divide and conquer in an extremely, I feel, diabolical vein. There have been a number of reports. Max, I can't remember the name of his report. It's on our website. We have articles that have documented the intentional plan and how they were carried out to demonize to demonize Muslims, Arabs in general, but especially Muslims, to misrepresent what they believe, what they're doing, what their views are, their views of Christians. Many Americans don't know that Muslims revere Jesus, revere Mary, the mother of Jesus, that there's a great deal of respect for Christians in the Quran and among Muslims worldwide. About Iran, I've been in Iran a few times, and I met a man named Nader Talabzadeh, probably not saying his name well, but he was a supporter of the regime. He spoke English fluently with an American accent because he had gone to a school in Iran that was headed by American Christians. It was a very diverse school. He grew up, even though he's passed away just not too long ago. He was a devout Muslim who came back from the United States where he was living. He went to high school in the U.S. He went to college in the U.S. He went back to Iran. But as he just told me, he made a long multi-series, I think it's something like 20-episode film about Christianity that's very respectful of Jesus and of Christianity. When he grew up in Iran, going to school, he learned American hymns. He grew up singing "We Are Climbing Jacob's Ladder," the kinds of hymns that I know. He knows too. We had a great deal in common. But then he was demonized by the U.S. government. He was putting on conferences. I went to two of them, in which he was trying to make a bridge between Americans and Iranians. So Iranians would see that there are Americans that were opposed to the violence in the Middle East. And so Iranians would see people like what I'm doing, and that Americans would see what the average Iranian was like. So it was this wonderful effort to make a bridge. But he was then designated, as they called it, by the U.S. Treasury Department, in which they say that you're not supposed to have anything to do with that individual or that conference. And that was the Treasury Department official doing that was pro-Israel. I believe there was indications that she was, and she's still alive, that she's an Israeli citizen. And certainly Mnuchin, who is the Secretary of the Treasury, has a long history of being pro-Israel. So again, we have this manipulation, dividing Americans from Iranians, Christians from Muslims. We need to, all of us need to work to overcome that and learn what the real facts are.
Are you seeing last question, are you seeing a shift from when you started to now? Are people starting to get more informed? Is the tide turning? Are people getting educated from when you started to now? Are you seeing a difference?
I am seeing a difference. I am seeing a difference. Many more people are learning what's actually going on, what's being done to Palestinians, especially with social media. When you make the least effort, you can see these very tragic videos of children and of what's going on in Gaza. People are seeing those and learning about them and spreading them and sharing them. That's one of the reasons there's our social media feed are shadow banned, so sometimes that's still not as fully functional as it should be. But many people are learning that and are speaking out and sharing it. I think that for a long time, the change was mostly occurring in the left side of the American political spectrum, among liberals and progressives. More and more people finally have become aware of this issue and speaking out about it. Sadly, conservatives then thought, well, if progressives are for it, we're against it. And, both sides do that sort of foolish thinking against the other side. But even though there were conservative Americans who long were speaking out about this issue, actively, accurately, positively, factually. But that the Fox News and talk radio continued to dominate that side of the political spectrum. Now that's changing. As I mentioned, we have major influencers among conservatives that are horrified at what's going on, are speaking out against it, are speaking factually against it. So that's a major change that's occurred probably mostly in the last few months. That's come out more and more. Now, behind the scenes, many of them maybe were already thinking that way. But again, because of the dynamics of campaign donations, they weren't speaking out publicly. Now they are. I think the fact that there's been an effort by Israel to get us to go to war with Iran that would be disastrous could result in some sort of nuclear exchange, would be disastrous, would cause, again, massive loss of life, massive damage to the United States, to the world, of course, to Iranians, to Israelis as well. So the fact that that's been such an effort to get us to attack Iran, and we've come so close to doing it. Trump did just bomb 3 places, but I think they're drawing back now. But the fear that might happen again after we saw what happened to Iraq has really produced more people to speak out against it, which is necessary. It's so necessary, and it's wonderful that now they are finally doing that. So I think there has been a change.
And I think this is real love for one's country. I'm in America. I was born here. I love my country. I'm sure you're an American. You love your country. You don't agree with sending money down to another country that's waging war against innocent children. When we have here, that money can be put to use to eliminate all of the problems that we have at home, and we got many. So we prove here that you're a Christian, I'm Muslim. We can come together and talk, and we can go ahead and look past some of our differences, just like people in their own homes. You got Democrat, Republican, but now they live together. We're a family of humanity. We have to live together. We're for peace. And that's what we want. And it's out of the love. And thank you very much for spending some time with me and the audience and sharing much of this very important information. And where can people, again, if they want to learn more, how can they connect with you?
I always forget to do this. Here's my book. I don't know if I'm holding the right
Bring
place
it, bring
for you
it
to see
forward. There you go, right there. Yeah. This is your book. Against Our
That's
Better.
my book.
Yes.
And here's the so anyway, that's the book. The website is ifamericansknew.org, And when you go to the website, you'll see that we also have a daily news blog that's sort of an aggregation of articles from many sources, and that's called IsraelPalestineNews.org. But if you go to ifamericansnew.org, then you can also get the link to the daily blog where we post many more things on the daily blog every day. So those are where I hope people will go. We have a YouTube channel that has numerous videos that I hope people will see about the topic that we've been making through the years. Many are by us, but often we just repost other videos that people have made that show a variety of people speaking about this issue and give the facts about the Great March of Return, for example, the nonviolent march that Gazans did for almost 2 years, every week, 86 weeks in a row, long before October 7th, that most Americans don't even know what that went on and was covered up by the US media and especially by PBS. So I hope people will visit our channel and our websites.
Thank you, Allison. God bless you. Thank you again.